Everybody, this is John at the top of the episode. I wanted to do a quick disclaimer before we get started. The views represented here are our views and our views alone. They do not represent that of our employers. To that end, please do not try and find our employers either. Thanks.
Welcome to SeedPod, a podcast about the natural world. My name is AJ, and with me are the co-hosts. All three of us are co-hosts. We don't have a single primary host, I guess. We've got Calvin, and we've got John. How you guys doing this week?
Doing well. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a gorgeous day in the Midwest right now, so we are enjoying our Memorial Day. How about you guys?
Oh, yeah. It's finally not raining here in the Mid-Atlantic, and it's been 65, so it's a great day for a move.
Oh, yeah.
It's hot and humid here. We've had like 3 separate thunderstorms today. Jeez. And then the sun comes out and it makes it more humid, and then it rains more, and then the sun comes out and it makes it more humid. So it's been steamy here today.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
So this week's episode would be the second part of the North American model of wildlife conservation. But before we do that, we have a couple of our normal segments we want to get into. Our first one, invasive species of the week. What do we have this week, fellas?
Well, no, our first one is our Woods Minute.
Is it I feel like we do them in all different orders.
Okay. The first one can be the invasive species of the week.
This week's is the European starling.
Boo.
Boo.
Yeah, boo.
Is this our first animal?
Yeah, this is our first vertebrate even.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet.
So, AJ, you want to talk about the European starling, or should I?
Oh, take it away.
So the European starling is a starling that is native to, guess where, guys?
Europe.
Is it Europe?
Eurasia. Yep, it's native to Eurasia. There's a number of subspecies, a whole bunch. It's a very well-studied species in Europe because it's been, really commonly studied. So it's a classic species for all kinds of studies in Europe. However, it is invasive in a good chunk of the world. It's commonly found in North America. Do we know why it was introduced in North America?
Some dipshit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some dipshit wanted it to be to inspire the next great American writer or next great Shakespeare or something like that. Yeah.
Well, so there used to be these things called the Climatization Society. So thinking back to the 18 and 1700s in North America, later in other places, Europeans wanted the New World to look like the Old World. And so this guy was the president of the Acclimatization Society in New York City, and he wanted all of the birds mentioned in Shakespeare to be found in North America. So he went ahead and released European starlings. Now, it took 10 releases for the European starling to take hold in North America.
We
had so many chances.
We dodged the bullet.
Yeah,
10 times.
I mean, they were introduced in the 1800s, so he had to get these things shipped to him.
Yeah.
Over the course of a couple of years.
I was gonna say it takes 4 weeks, 6 weeks to cross the Atlantic, right? Assuming everything goes right and there's not a hurricane, that's and you got to send a letter back saying, "Hey guys, I need more starlings. This batch didn't survive." He's doing a month after a month, at least 4 separate years. Ugh.
Yep. And so the Acclimatization Societies lasted for a long time. So Eugene Scheinfeld in 1890 was when he successfully released these. So these Acclimatization Societies have been going on for a long time. So they had plenty of chances to know better. I mean, we talked for a long time last episode about the GIF. This is concurrent with the GIF releasing these birds. So it took him 10 releases, and he started in the 1870s. He was trying to release these birds. In the 1890s, he finally got to be successful, and now we have 150 million European starlings across all of North America, from Southern California all the way up to Alaska.
I fucking love it. I love a multi-decade project to introduce a species that will not only cause, massive ecological damage, but also just agricultural damage too.
Really?
This is not just we're mad about it because, we're wildlife and ecology people. No, this is actually a pest species across the fucking board.
Are we gonna
Almost
do
half
like
$1 billion in agricultural damages every year.
No shit. So what are they? Are they
dude.
seedivores or whatever that's called?
Yeah, they
Carnivores?
just
Yeah,
and then
okay.
they're also like a pest to bird species and stuff, or to all kinds of wildlife species. So fun fact, it is also invasive in the much of the Pacific, as well as the West Indies and South America, and South Africa. And you want to know who introduced the European starling in South Africa?
Who? I have
It's
no
gonna be a
idea.
boar of some sort.
Oh no! Come on, this is better than that. Making his first podcast appearance, and hopefully his last. Our good friend of the pod, Cecil Rhodes.
What?
Yep. Wanted to see the birds of his home in his new home.
God, what an asshole.
Yep.
Huh.
But it was also introduced into Polynesia, so New Zealand, Australia, a bunch of the islands.
New Zealand has it's all birds already. Why do you need more birds? It's just all birds all the way down already.
Yeah, well, we'll get unpack that in a second. But so just for a little fun fact there. So it was believed that starlings were a pollinator of flax, and so they were introduced both to pollinate flax as well as to control caterpillars and other crop species or other pests of crops across the European settlement of Australasia, as well as in South Africa or South America. Yeah, no, stupid as shit.
That
dog.
makes so little sense.
Yeah,
oh my
fuck
God.
this bird. Yeah, fuck this bird.
Yeah.
So I just realized we didn't describe this bird at all.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I feel like most of our listeners probably know what a starling is, but
So no, I
just for
didn't.
fun.
So I didn't.
Oh, really?
Until moving to
Okay.
Iowa, they aren't out west, or at least in the part of the west I was in. They weren't
they're out
there yet.
west.
So yeah, I had
No,
no
they're-
idea what this weird looking bird was.
they're everywhere. So okay, most people probably lump them in with red-winged blackbirds and every other. It's they'll get lumped into this generic. Oh, it's a blackbird because I can tell that it's smaller than a crow, right?
Yep.
But it's very much not a blackbird. They have kind of an iridescent plumage. Like they're dark, they're blackish, but they can have a little bit of iridescence to them.
Oh, very much.
Sometimes they don't, though. I've seen them
Yeah.
where they're a little bit more brown. But if you're ever driving across the Midwest or just driving in the U.S. and you see these giant flocks of just a giant flock moving kind of as one, like in a ball sometimes, or in these like really complex wave patterns. I mean, the way that these birds flock is absolutely the coolest thing about them. It's super fascinating. I just wish they would do it not
Those
here.
are called mirages.
They're called
So
what?
mirages.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
let me finish up. Let me finish up on the red-winged blackbird. So as AJ mentioned, it's a blackbird, but what gives it the name Sterling? It has these little white spots all over it that kind of looks like stars in the night sky. So hence the name Starling. I will say it's an accurately named bird. If you're holding it in hand. If you're not holding it in hand, you don't really see the white spots that well, but you definitely can see them. So, as AJ was mentioning, at dusk, the red-winged blackbirds, all the starlings in the area get together in this huge flock. It's called the mirage, and they do these really interesting patterns. Why they do them, we're not exactly sure. We think it has something to do with social stuff. It could just be for fun, but they do these big mirages every day at dusk. It's really cool. It's really neat. It's also one of the things that makes them a prime candidate for behavioral studies. So, wildlife behavior is it's an important field that's really understudied, but these are a great bird to study for that because they have this really interesting behavior. Also, in North America, they're invasive, so they're really easy to study because they're everywhere, and
And no one cares about them.
yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
On the Ayacook side, it's like, okay, after you hold this thing, you should kill it, though, right? You're gonna kill this thing. Oh, I also need to round up my estimation of damage. In North America, they do roughly $800 million of damage annually.
Damn.
Yep.
That is not.
Yep.
That is a. Yeah.
Yep.
And usually with our invasive species, we talk a little bit about like, okay, well, what can we do? When we talk about a plant, we talk about, okay, well, this is how you kill it. I mean, you can kill them in hand, but apart from that, like, there's no starling control out there.
This is a done problem. It's over with.
That toothpaste is all the way out of the tube and it ain't going back in.
Yep.
I do recall seeing someone who trained a falcon to specifically or mostly go for all the starlings in like a little area. Like that's about the extent of the control that you can do. Shoot them with a BB gun out your back door if you have that opportunity. But like,
I have an air gun just to do that.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I almost forgot the coolest thing about starlings. I do have to give this to them. What's really cool is that they make a really good pet, and they are also a mimic. So they will mimic lots of other calls. So that's why they get mentioned and thought about a lot in literature. It's because they can kind of survive anything. They're mimic. They can kind of get by on lots of stuff.
It'll be the starlings, the cockroaches, the tree of heaven that survived the nuclear apocalypse, right?
And the American robin. Never forget the American
robin.
Yeah,
fucking robins, man.
That fucking red
They
softball.
do not give a shit.
It will eat anything and be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta have one.
And look grumpy as fuck while doing it. All right, our next segment is our Forest Minute. So cool shit that happened in the last week or so, or anything neat you saw, or anything that just made you smile. What you got?
So I'll go first here. So my Forest Minute. So we are working on this big fern spraying project. So rhizospheric, rhizomatous. Sorry, rhizomatous ferns are kind of a problem in the Mid-Atlantic. They can take over whole forest understories because like deer don't eat them, but they shade everything out. In small numbers, they're fine, but they're taking over our whole forest understory. So you got to spray them with a mist blower. And we've been doing the management our fern stuff now, and it's been like 50, and it's just a gorgeous 6-8 hours walk through the woods, just blasting fern and tree of heaven. It's been nice. But we got the 50-acre job wrapped up. So yeah.
Is this like an invasive species of fern, or is it just a native, a weedy native, basically?
It's a weedy native that goes crazy with high deer populations. Oh, the other thing that we saw while I was spraying the fern is I saw a little nightingale. I kicked him up, and that was really fun and cool. He let me get pretty close to him. And then I saw a little baby fawn that was so new to the world, it was struggling to walk.
Damn.
Nice.
Yeah, dude must have been hours old. I definitely could have gone over and picked him up if I wanted to. But we don't play with wildlife, so I didn't bother it.
Yeah. So mine's actually out of the woods, but relating to the woods. So I attended our city is undergoing its parks renewal, our management plan renewal for the entire city, and so it's a decent sized city. So I'm currently lobbying them. I am a lobbyist now, to try and include conservation in the parks, like the name of the parks and their mission of the parks department, because we have 3 or 4 rural parks, or rural, but more foresty, more prairie-y, more wetland-y sites in the parks portfolio, and some of them are managed really well, and some of them have been basically left to go wild, in air quotes. What that really means is just it's a ton of invasives, and so I'm trying to talk with folks and try to get them to do forest management. So as a result of this, I am currently trying to put together a hike and discussion of how you manage an oak forest, and if the landowners and the public want an oak savanna or a prairie here, what does that look like and how are we going to do that? This is one of these parks is surrounded by a lot of rich folks who have feelings about fire being anywhere within the vicinity and smoke as well. And it's if you want this, you have to do this sort of thing, and just try to walk them through that. So it's still in the early stages of thinking, but it was fun, and I'm really excited to try and see if I can't get a couple people out to
That's
talk
awesome.
about it.
That sounds awesome.
How big are these parks?
100 acres. There are a couple hundred acres.
Yeah.
One's closer to 400 acres. That's really literally on the edge of town. But they're just a couple hundred acres on the edges here or there.
That's
a
a good size. That's a good amount of land to manage in that way.
Yeah.
Plus, if you can get the management contract, hey, come on now.
Yeah. There may be a conflict of interest there. My wife may or may not work for the city, so.
Hey! We don't need to self-incriminate on this podcast.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But
hell, I'll come help you burn it for free, man.
Well, literally, yeah, that's half of it. But yeah, no, I'm excited to at least get started and try to try to convince people that we need to do something, anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
How are you,
So
AJ?
mine is it's a burn again. I don't feel like that's all I talk about, but that's just the time
Hell
of year it is.
yeah! Burn that shit.
No, yeah, we got a fairly high priority burn on private land done. So this is adjacent to one of our management areas that has like right on the property line is this pond that is the breeding habitat for T&E species, and it's one of the only ones
Okay,
that
what's the species?
I don't
Or
want
can
to
you
say.
not say? Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather not say.
Oh,
especially because
ooh.
of the private land connection.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Go for frog. Go for frog.
But we got it done. We was able to round up enough people. I know for for John especially, it's still like nice and cool where you are, but here it is getting hot and all of our seasonals are going away. So you're kind of having to piece burn crews in from all over the state and say, hey, can I steal you and an ATV? Hey, can I steal you and your last standing technician and the UTV? Like, and so having to piece all that together and set it up and coordinate with the landowner and do all that stuff and then do all that far enough ahead of time that you can get these people driving 3.5 hours, and then hope the weather doesn't change, which I don't know how I did it, but man, I called the weather like 10 days out and it did not change. I got the wind I needed.
That is the most important part, or the most impressive part. Like, yes,
I almost couldn't believe it.
But like,
I'm obsessively hitting refresh on the fire weather dashboard like multiple times every day, just seeing like, is that wind better not get, I need some north. And it stayed, and it actually burned. It didn't burn as good as I would have liked, but it did.
Fire
did
on the
pretty
ground.
dang good.
Yeah,
fire is fire is fire.
Did pretty dang good. So
I know that we were going to
happy
do
about that.
more focus today, but can we do a quick aside on the fire weather portal?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, can you just explain what that is real quick?
Okay, so yeah, I mentioned it's the fire weather dashboard is the one that I was referring to. It is run by the National Weather Service, NOAA, and it is just I think you could plug in a lat long if you wanted to, but really it's just a map, and you zoom and pan to where you want basically a point. Well, I shouldn't call it a point weather forecast because that's a different thing, but it is basically you click on the map and it'll give you kind of a more particular weather forecast for like I think it's a 1 mile square. So rather than just saying like, oh, what's the weather in Atlanta? Or what's the weather in Milwaukee? You could actually say, okay, what do they think the weather is going to be in this 1 mile square of Milwaukee, or this 1 mile square of whatever county out in the middle of nowhere, where you're going to be burning. And so it gives you kind of like interpolated values, based on where all the other weather stations are. But it's really nice, and so you get this hour by hour change. You can see, okay, at 1 o'clock is when my RH is going to be, finally below 50, and I think we'll start getting some good fire effects. But at 4 o'clock, it's down to 20% humidity, and the wind's going to pick up to 10, so we need to be done lighting shit on fire by then. And so it's just, an extremely useful tool for planning burns and even conducting them, because if you start seeing stuff that you weren't expecting, if you got service, you can pull up the dashboard and hit it again, and oh god, it changed on me. What do we do now? So yeah, it's a super useful tool, and there's a lot on there that like normal folks won't use, but it is got a lot of stuff. Like, knowing what the temperature and the humidity and and the wind direction and speed and everything is going to do hour by hour is useful enough for normal people. A lot of that you can get on other sources as well, but it's out there.
So the reason I wanted to just do a quick dive into that is just to highlight the importance of all these little government services you don't think about ever, but NOAA,
yes,
super important for anything natural resource related.
It all comes from the National Weather Service. It all comes from NOAA.
All the models for your drive time, whatever weather report, all comes back to what NOAA pushes out every however many hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So I distracted us long enough. All right,
That's
so
right.
we can get back to. All right, so
so we're on part 2 of the North American model of wildlife management or wildlife conservation, and we're going to actually talk about the model itself, because remember last week we just did a bunch of history about a bunch of stuff that happened to get us to the thing that is what we're calling the North American model. So if you remember, I said it was like it's a model. It's a conceptual framework. It's not, it's not here's in the U.S. code North American model is how we're doing wildlife. Like that's you can't find that.
Can we also quickly just redefine wildlife for everybody? So this applies to our vertebrates. That does largely not apply to insects. Doesn't apply to fish.
It kind of applies to fish in the
fish make it tricky because then we get to the commercial exploitation of fish.
Well, okay, there's that.
So let's just say fish, kind of.
Fish are
kind
weird.
of.
Yes. Yeah.
Fish are weird. Reptiles, amphibians, they're wildlife, but if you remember from last week, they do not get the benefit of the funding from Pittman Robertson, so they're also not wildlife in that sense. Because they don't have fur, nor do they have feathers. And they're not game species, except for frogs, which are fish.
Yeah, so for the purpose of the North American model, you're basically looking for fur and feathers, asterisks.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it.
Like the American alligator is kind of like one of those asterisks. Like, it kind of applies to North American alligator.
Yeah, that one very much only got shoehorned in after it recovered enough to be, considered a game species again. And they're like, okay, no, that one's a wildlife.
Yeah.
Before that, it wasn't. It was just an alligator.
Yeah. So if it fur, feathers, everything else, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Fur, feathers, can you eat it?
Yeah.
Fur, feathers, can you eat it? That's a good way to think about it, except for fish.
And we would just like to now acknowledge that, we firmly believe that all species, are valid and important, and this should apply to all of them. But we're going to acknowledge also that the model doesn't apply to everything because not everyone feels that way.
Yeah, and we will certainly talk about that. So the model itself, it wasn't even really articulated, somebody had to come up with it, right? Because we have a name for it. That didn't happen for a really long time. It was 1995-ish is when this guy, name alert, Valerius Geist. Now that is a name.
That's a sick name.
He's a zoologist and a deer biologist and kind of a weird dude. Calvin, are you familiar with him at all? Do you know much
honestly,
about him?
If I dug into him, I might actually know him. I surprisingly know some big names in the deer biology field. So I could dig into him and figure that out. I'm sure that we have a first or second order connection, but I don't know him off the top of my head.
So
sick ass name though.
He's right. Yeah. So he's kind of a weird dude. He has a lot of thoughts on biodiversity and wolves and managing predators and
Are these good thoughts, bad thoughts? Okay, he's a deer biologist.
He's a deer biologist.
Okay, all right.
Okay, never mind.
But he has an interesting background though, and I think a lot of that kind of informs a lot of the stuff that he wrote about the North American model and how he kind of put it together. So he's Ukrainian born.
Okay.
German Canadian. I guess his parents were
wild.
They were
all over the place.
I don't know. I guess there were some Germans that lived in Ukraine at some point.
I mean,
after something.
I don't think we want to dig into that history.
And then some revolutions happened, and then the Soviets happened, and then the Germans had to go back to Germany, and then his family.
History happened, as they say.
History happened. Anyway, he ended up in Canada. And that's where he was a deer biologist and professor of zoology. So he's got this background though that kind of post, or not post, but Soviet Socialist Republic-y background of kind of seeing authoritarianism and living under maybe not dictatorships, but class consciousness is not the right term for it. But he's kind of got that background of this dynamic of the elites and the blue collar people, and there's a lot more I think, conflict built in there in his writing and in his opinions on things than I think a lot of other folks, would just normally have.
Now that you say that kind of tracks for the model. I will also say we're not going to highlight this yet. We'll get to it, but like European models of wildlife management are incredibly different, and so that just having that background in the European models would definitely help.
Yeah.
I also do want to say like props to this dude for like taking the time to write the model, because like it's really difficult to find time to step outside of the work that you're already doing and to like think about the space that you're in.
Yeah.
Like just like finding that like mental space is difficult.
I mean, it very like you kind of almost. I bet you almost had to have somebody with this kind of an outside point of view to come up with like, oh hey, here's all this stuff that we're all already doing.
Yeah.
And we're all doing it in North America, but no one's talking about it. You know what? Let's put a name on it and let's talk about what it actually is. I think you're right. Like it did kind of take someone from that background to like, have that sort of not really an outsider, but a little bit of an outsider's perspective to say like, y'all know you're all doing the same stuff, right? Like this is, you have an ethic of how you're going about this. And here's, now we're going to formalize it. We're going to write stuff down.
Okay, let's formalize it. Tell me what the pillars
Let's
are.
do that. We've got pillars. We got the seven tenets, the 7 pillars.
Giving.
Yeah. Trustworthy, loyal, helpful.
Friendly, courteous, kind, clean, thrifty. I got it.
Hush, yeah, I know.
Yeah, we're all nerds. Okay, so the first one. Wildlife resources are a public trust. Well, what's a public trust? Anyone?
Oh God!
What is it? What does that mean? If something is in the public trust, what does that mean?
So the public trust means that every person in the U.S. and Canada has the same right to wildlife as every other person. Being in the public trust means it is held and managed by the public being both the state and federal government.
Right.
Yep, that's basically what I was going to say.
It's like, and the public trust is like it's not just a wildlife thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Like the concept of the public trust is this huge concept, very important. Just from the broader perspective of civics in general. Like it was like written in, I think, 6th century law, like Roman law had writings about it. The Magna Carta mentions it, talking about like air, running water, the sea, and the shores of the sea. So that was the big things that were like the original stuff that was considered in the public trust, because it was all about fishing, commerce, and travel.
I was going to say, knowing Magna Carta, like, eels had to be in there somewhere.
Yep.
Because those motherfuckers love eels.
Oh, actually, so no. Eels would not be. So the Magna Carta basically is where they wrote it as those rights are owned by the king, by the sovereign, but specifically as a trustee for the people.
Right.
And not including wildlife.
So,
Okay,
I mean,
so
that's the big... So, John, that's the big difference between us and, like, Europeans. So, in North America, we all own the wildlife. So, the deer in the back... if you look at your back window right now, you see, like, a deer, a red-winged blackbird.
Yeah.
That is owned as much by you, as by me, as by AJ, as by an expat living in the Netherlands.
Okay.
We all own these things, which is a very different approach to wildlife than previous systems in Europe. European systems, the wildlife is owned by the landowner. So if that deer is standing in your backyard, you own it. The second it steps onto your neighbor's backyard, they own it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Whereas we say, no, homie, we all own the wildlife. I mean, we don't really own them. We manage them. My interpretation is we don't own wildlife because you can't own the wild thing.
No, I get that.
We manage it in public trust. So that's my slight disagreement with the model.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I will say even in North America, with the North American model where wildlife is added to this, because public trust. Sorry, I don't know if you're hearing that, but one of my dogs is having a very vivid dream.
Nice. Sick.
Wildlife was kind of added over decades and decades and decades of back and forth case law. It's not legal. It's part of the legal framework because of a lot of case law, but it's not, there's no statutory thing that says the wildlife is owned by the state. Like, you can't find that law anywhere, really.
Just for fun, do we want to mention the open field doctrines, or just like not?
Let's not confuse me unless it's relevant.
Okay. No, we can talk around it, because I would say that this is probably one of the most vulnerable parts of the North American model.
Then never mind.
Because it gets into what is private property and where do private property rights end. And actually, it brings up something we talked about very briefly earlier today, which is fencing. Like, so I know in my state, for example, you cannot high fence a deer. I mean, we're talking about deer fencing, basically. So to create, a privately held herd, which is still owned by the state, still managed, still part of the public trust, but a confined herd, you have to have a certain size property, because they want to make, that's kind of,
they want to ostensibly
at least make sure that it's big enough to, have a herd, whatever. But like, that's just how my state handles it. Other states may be different.
So
some states probably don't allow high fencing at all.
Yeah, so a high fence would be a 6 to 8 foot tall fence that is too high for like whitetails deer jump out of.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the open fields doctrine is one that also dates back to Magna Carta, and it says that in the enforcement of, wildlife and natural resources law, the enforcer can go anywhere. So private land doesn't exist for a fishing game board, or game commission officer, or DNR guy. Like, they can go anywhere to do the enforcement of that. They can't go into your home, but any land or place where that's relevant, they can go.
Wow.
Because
that's pretty impressive.
how are you going to enforce deer tags on private land unless you can go there? So you don't need probable cause. Like a game, for me, the game commission officer could just walk onto private land, walk up to a deer stand and be like, "Hey buddy, I need you to come out of the stand, show me your tags."
Yeah.
They can enter homes under very specific circumstances, like you need to have like the door open and 6 deer hanging out of a freezer. So it's not like, you could just like a game commission officer could just walk into your house, but they can walk onto your land, because if they couldn't, then what's the point of game laws only apply on public land. So that's the open fields doctrine.
Yeah.
And that's the enforcement arm of the legal trust. If you can't walk onto public land, or you can't walk on the land to check, then there is no public trust. This also applies to fish and water, because in some states, like my state, you can own the stream bottom, and therefore you can have private streams. So
oh, really?
Yeah, I fucking hate this stupid shit.
So, and for us, it has to be navigable. Basically, you have to be able to put a kayak, or whatever, canoe, kayak, whatever, in and have it float. So you may be able to walk obviously all the way up, but if you cannot conceivably put a kayak in the water and float without constantly grinding on the bottom, you cannot. That's private property. If you're grounded, basically. If you can float, it's public property and you can navigate it normally. I guess.
Huh.
It's weird.
I think any water should be public property. But hey, that's just me with my crazy ideas. So anyway, that's what the open fields doctrine is. It is currently, and it again dates back to we're talking foresters that King Richard the Lionheart would recognize.
I was going to say foresters when I cut 2 trees a year or whatever and I'm mostly responsible for keeping people out of the king's forest or something.
Yeah, where if you get caught poaching, you just get hung in the forest. That style.
That level of forest.
That's where that's how old this dates back, and how foundational this is to the legal system of the U.S. It is being challenged right now in the Supreme Court by shockingly conservatives.
Wow.
There was a case in Pennsylvania where these guys were very clearly breaking a number of laws, and they got busted by a game warden, and they're challenging the open fields doctrine as a thing.
There's on that note too, the entire concept of public trust, as a legal doctrine in the United States, at least, is not statutory. It's common law. It only exists because of a Supreme Court decision which kind of used to be a thing where we, be like, oh, it can't be repealed by legislation. That's good. But we live in the times that we
live in the times.
That gives me no fucking comfort whatsoever.
Yeah, I would say that the open fields doctrine is like pretty secure because again, it dates back to like not Magna Carta, but almost as old as Magna Carta. Mm-hmm. But again, the Supreme Court is what the Supreme Court is. So I have no doubt if they wanted to overturn the open fields doctrine, it's gone. But if it's gone, also there goes all fish and game enforcement in North America.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because then your boat is now outside of the purview of the open fields doctrine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was complete.
It's okay. I was gonna get spun up on talking about game wardens not being allowed on private hunting preserves in certain places, but we can skip that too because that's
different episode.
Anyway, public trust though is huge. It's really important in terms of how we actually manage wildlife, and I'm talking about from the 10,000-foot view because it means that like. I am a wildlife manager. I'm a wildlife biologist. Because of this public trust doctrine, it means I have to consider the entire public when I'm making management decisions, or at least I'm supposed to. I'm not going to say we always do, but we should. We are trying to do the best that we can for the resource and trying to do the best we can for the public. And it's also very useful because it kind of gives us a little bit of cover whenever we make a management decision that can piss off a subgroup of stakeholders. Like, we're not managing wildlife for deer hunters or rabbit hunters or birders or recreational hikers. We're managing wildlife for all of them. We're not managing for the Better Business Bureau or the UPS driver that thinks DNR means do not resuscitate. Like, we manage for all of them, or we should.
It's multi-use,
and so it's. So I think it's extremely important. It's there's a reason it's number one on the pillars or the tenets of the North American model.
The trickiest part of the public trust doctrine is the trust part. The public has to trust that you, the state, the government, whoever, can actually manage this resource and manage it to, a good standard. So we're going to get into the scientific part later, but like, managing public trust and expectations is the hardest part of being being a wildlife manager, and it's the part that like is most thought about, and from my perspective, my outside perspective, by wildlife agencies. So they're always thinking about public trust and acceptance, because if you lose that, then you lose the first tenet. Like, your management plan
you cannot get that back.
Yeah. And sometimes it gets over-focused on. We'll talk about chronic wasting disease in different episodes, but that trust goes multiple ways.
Well, and I think it's folks will get hung up on a particular stakeholder group or a particular interest group, and forget the public trust at large. It's been a while since I looked at it, but there was a nationwide survey. One of those groups did basically kind of a general surveys on like opinions of wildlife management agencies, and like overall they're overwhelmingly positive. Like state wildlife agencies just across the country, the general public largely has a positive impression of them.
Because the general population doesn't interact, we'll say, aggressively with these people. They either just kind of hunt a couple days a year or whatever. They don't go as insane, or they don't particularly care. They just like, I assume they're doing a decent job. I still see birds.
They're probably doing good stuff. I haven't heard any fucking news stories about them, being horribly corrupt or anything lately. So
literally,
probably fine.
Okay, all right. So we get the public trust out of the way. What's our
public trust out of the way? We're staying on track. Second tenet: markets for wild game are eliminated, and we put a little asterisk there. What does that mean?
Fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
okay.
but is it like
fish,
with the bison, like bison being over harvested for bison meat, basically?
Well,
yes,
bison, passenger
market
pigeon,
hunting,
deer,
passenger pigeon,
turkeys.
The millineries, the fancy fucking hats again.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I
remember that.
Yeah.
Fur markets still exist to some extent, but they're extremely heavily regulated, and it's not like it's that line between industrial scale capitalism and like local markets, right?
Yep.
And this is also, I think, the pillar that gets violated the most often.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, like, is buying a fishing license and like a game, like a hunting license, a market? I mean, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't count that in
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
I would count shit like coyote bounties
Yeah.
and big buck contests
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
managed quail hunts
Yeah.
and tower shoots for pheasants.
Yeah.
That kind of
Tower
shit.
shoots for Jesus Christ.
What?
Okay, I'm just laughing at that idea. Like,
There's
just
an
go for a
episode
walk,
in here
homie.
about big game hunting or like
Yeah.
managed
Also,
game hunting.
like this is where fish like kind of lose the mandate of heaven. Like if we start talking about like no market hunting, it's like okay, this is where we lose it for fish because
Yeah.
like if basically every fish that like Alaskan like snow crab like that's technically a wildlife. Well, again, depending on how you define wildlife, there would be a wildlife that is like caught and consumed on a market. Unless it's like farmed, everything is wild caught. If you're like a fish or invertebrate, so like okay, don't look too hard at this. Like if you like ever buy like gator bites, probably harvested from the wild, or if you have like wild alligator, like a wild alligator purse or boots, like that's a market.
Yeah.
But like just don't look at it. Don't look at this. It's fine.
Well, I also think part of it's like it's relatively small volume. It's not. It's more niche.
Like I said, I think it's that line that you can draw between industrial scale capitalist exploitation and just a market that exists.
A craft market, maybe we'll say.
I mean, I don't know, like a hunting lease. Is a hunting lease a market for wild game?
So that was my next question.
I don't think there should be around. Yeah.
No, I don't.
But that's more of an access thing, less than a market for wild game.
Right.
So, like,
yeah.
if you
It's you're paying for access to the wildlife, not the wildlife itself.
Yeah.
So
I will also say that there are definitely people who would like to eliminate this part of the model because, like, so for like deer management, could we manage deer better if like they were professional deer hunters who just bought who killed deer and then sold deer meat? Maybe.
Yeah.
But
possibly.
So that's a conversation I've been asked a lot about, and my response is, I don't know, homie. I just know Game Commission ain't never gonna do that, so that's not.
Yeah.
So,
but that's a fairly. I think that's pretty common in some of the European models, right?
Well, yeah.
Is that the market for game meat exists and it's much more widespread.
Yeah. So I've had if you go to I was in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and they had on the menu they had black bear they had European bear, they had boar, they had elk, which is we would consider that moose in here in North America. They had deer, all of it wild harvested. I know some European hunters, and they eat, so they'll shoot a bunch of deer, and they'll keep the back straps and the roast they prefer, and then everything else gets sold, and it just gets eaten in restaurants. So that would be the market side. Yeah. We don't have that in North America. But
so,
also, as part of that, hold on, John.
Yep.
As part of that, you have to, in good faith, attempt to consume all of an animal. So you can't just kill a deer, just take the back straps and the antlers. The back straps being the most preferred part of a deer. You have to make an effort to consume all of it. Gotcha. All right, sorry, John.
So I know we have a huge wild pig problem in the South, and it's slowly moving north and south from Canada. So how does that sort of thing fit?
Not game.
It's not game?
Yeah, they're not game.
Yeah, no, that's invasive. Yeah,
they're not wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We can just solve this problem right there.
Feral hogs are not wildlife.
Feral hogs aren't wildlife. Got it. Moving on.
They're actually taxonomically starlings.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Fish is bugs. Hogs is starling.
Hogs is starling. So,
yeah.
Just write this down.
Yeah. Just to really dig into this example. So you can buy American feral hog products. I'm going to say American. They could also come from Canada and Mexico, whatever. So you can buy feral boar and feral hog products out in the market. So you could buy boots, you could buy meat, all that kind of stuff. And so those animals are actually caught. So they're caught in a cage, and then they have to be killed at They have to be inspected and killed at a USDA butcher facility.
Okay.
Because you don't want just especially if you're getting a pig from Texas, you don't want a pig from Texas hanging out in the sun for 2 or 3 hours. It's 90 degrees, homie. No,
it's gonna be disgusting.
Yeah, but that is a big outlet for a lot of feral hog stuff. Is feral hogs are captured and then sent to the European market.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which is interesting because I know in my state it is absolutely illegal to transport a feral hog.
Yeah, well, then you put it back in the agricultural market, and that's a different thing. So that's the other thing about this is like, if you can label something an agricultural product or whatever, it's outside of this market. So you listener may be thinking, well, I just had an elk burger at my local Fuddruckers. Well, fun fact, that elk was raised on a farm or a ranch. That's an agricultural product. I know you may think that elk is a wild animal, but the elk that you are eating is agricultural. I just had some bison sirloin that was raised on a ranch. That's an agricultural product.
I was gonna say, unless it was shot by the guy, who did all the work, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
that's both
I bought that at
confusing.
Wegmans.
It makes a little bit of sense too, which is horrifying. I think. But
yeah, so like anytime you like buy like any kind of like cervid product, those are all ranched, and they have a high likelihood of CWD. Different conversation. Mm-hmm. So like elk burger, shot. Bison, that's ranched. Sorry, elk is ranched, bison ranched, all that stuff ranched.
Sweet.
So the no markets part, let's just jump right back into it. Yep. So no markets applies to wildlife. So invasive species doesn't apply to you. Like you can buy Florida python skin fair and clean because it's not wildlife. That's an invasive species. You can also buy bison, agricultural product, not wildlife.
Sure.
So,
okay.
There are some major asterisks to the no market. I just realized that.
Yeah. Third pillar, third tenet, whatever we're going to call it.
Oh, also taxidermy. I forgot.
Taxidermy. Okay.
Yeah. Taxidermy. Yeah. That's a different thing. That's art technically. So.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Third, allocation of wildlife is by law. What the fuck does that mean? Basically, that means that the public, you and me, we get to take wildlife, kill, take. We went over what take means earlier or last week. We get to take them according to laws written by whatever state we live in. So it's not governed by markets or land ownership or special status. You learn a lot of these kind of tie together. This is sort of an offshoot or a consequence of the public trust model, right? Like you don't need to be a special status citizen apart from just being a member of the public in good standing to take wildlife, assuming, according to the laws of your state. So hunting license, hunter safety certifications, that kind of stuff. And maybe there's like a sovereign citizen rant about how that's illegal and whatever, but we're not we don't need to get in that. Nope. It kind of also covers this idea that we set regulations on not just the number, but like how we take wildlife. So not just to prevent overharvest, but also to ensure that is, sporting. Because when they were coming up with all this stuff, being sportsmanlike was a big part of it. So the great example, John, are people allowed to spotlight deer at night and hunt them in your state?
I do not think so.
No, probably not. Calvin? Okay. Probably not, right?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, you can use silencers at hunt night if you're doing a call. That's it.
Okay, yeah, the cull's kind of a little asterisk there. But yeah, and that's because shooting at night is not sportsmanlike. That law is pretty much universal. The first one of those laws was written in, I think it was New York in like 1897.
Oh.
It's not because we're going to fucking run out of deer if we shoot them at night. It's just because it's not sportsmanlike. And so that kind of principle... Fascinating. Is kind of a through line of the North American model too. Like, yes, we should be able to take wildlife according to these laws. There should be a sporting element to it. This one's, I would say, mostly unchallenged. Like, it's not really at risk. Like a lot of these tenets we've talked about, like, oh, this one gets violated. It gets,
this one's a gray area.
This one. I mean, no one's really out there claiming that like states don't have the right to regulate hunting. That's not like a legitimate argument that anyone's really making. Now, enforcement of these laws is kind of all over the map. I mean, violations for game species, right? Like those are, a lot of the times can be more severe or more aggressively pursued than those for non-game species. There's always like some dude that gets caught like having killed 2,000 deer and selling the antlers to pet stores or whatever the fuck, like there's shit like that. Those are the ones you hear about. minor violations or things for like non-game species, a lot of those they just don't get enforced to the same extent, or they get reduced to minor fines or tossed out. Partly just because the court systems are also backed up. So like the enforcement part of this is very, I guess, variable.
Haphazard.
Yeah.
I will also say that regular game laws are like barely enforced. Like there's barely a
Yeah.
You can poach a lot of deer and barely get in trouble for it. I think this is the most important thing when we're thinking about the public trust. Like the idea that this hunt is sporting. That sporting again goes back. That's why we talk for so long about the GIF and about Leopold. Like that's where this comes from. It's like this, like to be honest, like upper class, like rich white dude approach to sporting. Does a deer think it is sporting that you shoot it in the heart from 300 yards away with a rifle? Absolutely not. No.
Nope.
It doesn't. It doesn't want to die.
Yeah.
The sporting is very important to us as people, and if the public doesn't view hunting as sporting and as like a fair thing, which it's absolutely not. Deer don't have crossbows. They don't have all this stuff. So, but if the public doesn't view it as sporting, then you don't have the trust. But that's also why, like in the North American model, like you can't use a thermal sight outside of like coyote hunts and varmint stuff. Again, that's a different topic for a different time. But like that's why you can't use drones. And there's like in like Alaska, you can't.
Actually. We have that's a discussion we're having in my agency right now.
Oh, okay.
Because one of our regulations, I forget the exact wording, but it's you're not allowed to use electronic assistance.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
drones are getting brought up. Oh God, I think the argument someone was making is it's an accessibility,
Oh my God.
like ADA
That's a
kind
bad
of thing
argument. That's a
for
bad- that's a
for
bad
people
faith
wanting to
argument.
use them to track, follow blood trails, and
That's a bad faith argument.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so that's why, like,
Anyway,
in Alaska, you can't, like, there's, like, a 24-hour rule from getting off a plane. Like, if you fly a plane, you have to wait, like, a day before you can hunt again. So it's not like, okay, we see the herd of caribou from the air, then we land and we blast 6 of them. It's the whole sporting concept.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there are some exceptions to this. Like, again, like, think about Alaska, like, with the subsistence hunters, like, there are some, something around here. We can say, like, our trail cams, sporting, that's a whole ethical argument. I don't use trail cams because I don't have the time.
Is a food plot sporting?
No.
That's a different
reasons and
come on
different
now.
angry yelling.
Yeah,
Not even gonna mention the fucking deer feeders that people.
yeah.
Oh,
baiting.
God.
I would say, that's a whole other argument. So, the sporting does play a large role in it. And that's the public management. That is the social side of wildlife management. That's very important.
Yeah.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the wildlife side. A deer doesn't care if you spear it, if you throw a spear at it, or if you shoot it, or if you hit it with a car. It doesn't want to die. So the sporting concept is very important to wildlife management in North America, but not at all important to wildlife.
Number 4 on the list. Wildlife can only be killed for a legitimate purpose. What's a legitimate purpose?
Good question. Subsistence?
Well, okay, so Geist, when he wrote all this stuff down, he laid a few things out. So we can go with his to start with, and then we'll talk about it. He said pretty much food, fur, self-defense, protection of property. That was his list. I don't disagree with any of that. Most of those big name dudes that we talked about in the first episode, Grinnell, Roosevelt, those types, most of them would not say food is a legitimate purpose. For them, a sportsman hunts for love of the game, and food should not be on the list because they were kind of responding to what they called the pot hunters, which would like literally be people hunting to put food in their pot,
Yep.
but it was they wouldn't include that. I think that particular kind of outlook has swung back. I think most of us agree if you're hunting to put food on the table, that is just as if not more legitimate than a trophy hunter that still uses the meat. If you're hunting if you're just a trophy hunter, is that a legitimate purpose?
This is where I have issues with it personally. I I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like from an ethical standpoint, I don't think so. But I'm more than happy for folks to do the pot hunting, put food on the table, that sort of thing. But I also recognize too that like we don't have any predators in my area, so we have to hunt. Otherwise, everything falls apart.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. There's an element
conflicted.
of excusing a few people's not legitimate purposes in the service of the greater, more legitimate purpose of population management.
Well,
I'd agree
I
with
think
that.
when we look at North American hunting, like it's largely not like trophy hunting as many people would recognize trophy hunting. It's not like trophy hunting at like big reserves in Africa where like okay you shoot a gemsbuck and you take the antlers home and then people like around eat the deer.
Yeah.
Eat the gemsbuck. Like okay, like people like may want to select for larger antlers, but they'll still they're still gonna use things. So I don't think trophy.
They'll still cut the backstrap off if nothing else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a few trophy hunts you can do in North America. So like you can get like in Idaho, like the governor's moose tag. But like outside of like stuff like, and even then people are mostly gonna eat. Like you're not gonna shoot a moose and then leave the moose because like that's a real tasty chunk of meat. So,
also like a literal ton of moose as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is I don't think it's like the largest concern in most.
Honestly, I think I let me think. I mean, bear. I feel like most bear hunters that I know eat the meat.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not a huge bear fan, but that's
I'm not a huge fan of the meat, but yeah, I would eat it. Turkey though, I know of lots. Well, I don't want to say lots. I know of more than I would like turkey hunters that do not eat the turkey.
Come on.
They're just in it for the fan and the beard and and that like they're not eating it. They're like, it's kind of gross. Like then
I know that about
then don't fucking shoot it, man.
Yeah. I know that about some goose hunters who don't like to eat.
Sit your ass in the woods and take a picture of it instead, man. Like
right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same damn thing.
Well, I just want to say like about the pot hunters. So the pot hunters in Teddy Roosevelt's North America were targeting completely different animals. So like robin pie was a very common dish in the early parts of like American colonization and America up until like the 1900s. So like you shoot like 8 American robins and then stack them boys in a pie crust. So like it's a completely different selection of quote unquote game. So when we're thinking about game now, like what we eat and consume are vastly different than what TR and his buddies were concerned about.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea of like, historical context is actually important and very, relevant.
But also the public trust. Like we know like, okay, we can't really sustain, robins maybe the one warbler you could harvest and be fine with. But we can't really sustain the harvest of these animals.
No.
Like it's just not going to work in today's habitat and wildlife conditions. So like the public trusts that like okay we're not eating these things for a good reason, but also there's been a lot of cultural work around like hey don't eat songbirds. You can't say that about a lot of Europe. In a lot of Europe and the Middle East they eat songbirds.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's one of mine. That's just so weird.
Yeah, it's culture, man.
No, I know
also,
it's culture, but also like I can say that's weird. They can say things that I do are weird. It's fine. I understand. Like,
yeah, but also like that those wildlife populations can't sustain it. So like it may be cultural to eat some of these warblers and stuff like that, but like not good from a sustainability standpoint. If you care about the long term health of these populations, you can't do it. Like there was a time in the U.S. where you could not sustainably eat deer.
Right.
But,
deer and turkey for that matter as well. Yeah. Both of those species needed massive recoveries before we could really consider them game species again.
But that time has long since passed.
Yeah, we're good now. At least on deer.
I'd say turkeys too.
Turkeys are fine, but they're not.
We got turkeys in more states than they were at the time of colonization.
Well, yeah, okay. That doesn't make it okay. That just means we introduced the fuckers places.
Yeah. No, I think turkeys are fine.
But okay, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but like, managed culls, herd reduction, is that a legitimate reason? Predator control for sensitive species. Is that a legitimate reason?
Yeah, the predator control gets me. For most of the stuff, I'd say, yeah, it's fine. I
Yeah.
mean, again, this is where these two pillars conflict because a lot of the culls is managing the public trust side. So you do culls in the Gettysburg National Park, like to manage like the wildlife, but it's not a method of take that the public likes.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the cull, then you don't have forests, and also all the farmers complain because their crops are eaten by all these deer.
But also they all want to see deer too. Like, my God, the number of people are like, well, I need to see a deer a day or something like that. Otherwise, everything's falling apart. I'm like, okay, do you? Sorry, the left hand not talking to the right hand and only thinking about the only possible wildlife species is freaking Bambi. Like, oh God, that's just so frustrating.
Well, this again, you're back to the trust part because now who is the user? We are all the user, but so that's where the model starts to conflict with itself.
I had one of my old jobs, years and years ago. We would occasionally need to shoot predatory gulls that were depredating tern nests. Was that a legitimate reason? I mean, it's not like we were using the gulls for anything. We just left them laying out there.
Well, so here's another one as well. So barred owls.
According to the way they lay this out,
Yeah,
those are not
barred owl.
legitimate. But I think we can all agree that they are.
So, okay, just to dig down this for a quick sec. So, barred owls are invasive in the Pacific Northwest. They were introduced as a result of colonization, kind of European-style settlements. So there used to not be trees across the Great Plains. Well, you start to put cities and suburbs up, and now there are trees across the Great Plains. The barred owls use the suburbs to get to the Pacific Northwest, and the barred owls are now a huge predator of the spotted owl. And so the Fish and Wildlife Service is going to kill 10,000 barred owls a year for the next
Some
I don't know how many
insane
years.
number, yeah.
Yeah, because they're eating the spotted owl as well as a number of different owls. So I would say invasive species control is a legitimate use. That's a legitimate take. This is now we have left the realm of wildlife and we've entered the realm of invasive species.
Gotcha.
And when you enter the realm of invasive species, you enter the realm of death. There is no out for an invasive species, but death. It may make me sad to see a barred owl shot because they're native to eastern North America, but they should still be shot. Just as a tree of heaven should be killed, I think the barred owl in Oregon should be shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always fun, but that's the job.
It's fine.
Man.
It's fine. I kind of like trying to discuss these ethical of all the things that I don't necessarily deal with on a daily basis. Like just discussing these ethical questions is the most maybe not fun, but it feels the most interesting for me for a lot. So.
From an ecological perspective, feral hogs and barred owls, kind of the same question with the same solution. Yeah, just shoot them all, man. Next problem.
Sorted out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine with the gulls was a little bit. I mean, they were not invasive gulls. They were native. The gull colony surrounded the tern colony, so they were kind of doing what they were supposed to do. But because the terns were, at risk, let's say, that management kind of became necessary. And and so
they were at risk. You weren't just blasting gulls for no.
Well, yeah, and it's not just blasting gulls at randomly. It was so gulls suck, but they're smart.
Yes.
And so some of them learn how to become very good nest predators, and so we were on these colonies day after day and watching, and so they get a certain number of strikes, and then we make the call and get permission to shoot them off the colony.
And then you get a strike.
And then and then we take them down. And
okay, so this has been a really great examination of the North American model. Do we have time to compare it to some other models, or should we call it here?
I mean, we've still got 3 more pillars, man.
Okay. Oh shit! All right, let's go.
How fast
Let's go back to the recurring.
And then there's more after that. I think this may end up being a 3-parter.
Okay, so we have Hajj, prayer, giving to the poor.
So the next one will be pretty quick. Next one's pretty quick. It's easy. It's just wildlife is considered an international resource, and that one honestly,
that one makes the most sense to me.
Makes real good sense. Only exists because of Canada, I would say. And the reason I'm saying
100%.
that is if you think back to all the foundational, legal frameworks, legislation, all the statutes and everything that we talked about last time, a lot of it has to do with hunting, right? It's fur and feathers.
Yep.
And remember the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, which was passed in 1916 when the U.S. was as isolationist as it has pretty much ever been. Why the fuck are we passing laws that have anything to do with other countries? We should just be able to shoot our own ducks and not worry about it, right? We'll see. We like to shoot ducks, and they migrate back and forth from Canada. And so if we want to hunt them down here, they got to be managed up there, and like vice versa.
Oh my God!
So
things that fly cross
right,
borders.
Wildlife don't read maps, and they don't get
That's
passports either. Yeah. So that's kind of the genesis of that, like of how that got to be built into the model. It's largely because of waterfowl, and it's largely because the U.S. and Canada kind of both started developing this framework around the same time and in very similar ways. But yeah, so that's number 5. Wildlife's
I don't
international
think
resource.
this becomes a pillar without the international and the Canadian background of the author. Because honestly, North American managers just don't think about Canada.
Well, and so I'd also like to point
to
out
be
North America
real honest,
also
like-
counts like all of the the South, not South America,
Yeah,
but like
Mexico.
it also it
Especially-
counts Mexico because like that's where
Yeah, like-
everything goes during the winter, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
especially
that,
if you think about jaguars, which is kind of we'll get to that episode later. I do have the expert for that. So like if you think about jaguars, like those guys they're native to America, but they're coming like extirpated. They're coming back from Mexico, and so that's why also like with the Mexican wolf, like we have treaties and agreements with Mexico, but also like, again like John you were saying with warblers, but like I don't think this becomes part of the pillar. If we don't have the author.
If guys
for
have
sure.
been
Yeah,
Canadian.
no,
Yeah,
I think
no,
that's a good
that's
point.
fair.
I think our more modern sensibilities like also Mexico because that's where all the warblers live. But yeah.
I mean, because like AJ, how often do you think about Canada?
Sometimes I think it might be nice to go back there.
But like like when you're doing management, it rarely comes up in your head, even though the species you're working with are often international. But like, I don't think this comes around without
none of the species I'm working with go to or from Canada really.
Yeah.
That's not my bailiwick. But
Yeah.
no, that's
But
fair.
it took a different author perspective to get that in there because like the American wildlife biologist doesn't think about other countries because we're Americans and like I hate to like lean into the stereotype, but like America #1 baby, all we think about is America.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, continue.
6. Science is the proper tool to discharge wildlife policy.
Fuck yeah,
yes.
buddy, love
I-
that shit.
Not vibes.
Except, well, I'm gonna throw an asterisk there because
Oh, no.
yeah, it's awesome. So we're gonna back up real quick. This is also sometimes called the Roosevelt Doctrine, which I know we love a good doctrine. We love a good doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was Teddy Roosevelt basically wrote that as much like we should be using science to figure things out. And yeah, science is how we know stuff about wildlife. Knowing stuff is important for if you want to manage them. We love science, right? Couple counterpoints though to
It's
science is the
freaking
proper
neat,
tool.
man.
Science
Nature's so metal.
Science is just how we come up with facts, and facts are really good, but facts don't become a policy until we apply our values to it. So I would say it's a little bit more involved than just saying science is the tool. No, we use science to come up with the facts that we're using as the foundation, but like we still have to apply our ethics, our values, both individually and as a society to what wildlife policy actually is and how we implement it. So
And
I
sorry.
think there's a little bit more to it than science. It's just that's all I want to say about
absolutely. And then we have to balance the science with like the with the trust part, with the wild, with the trust, as well as with the like historic uses and like methods of taking stuff like that. So
that. Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
this is
that's
this is
another
the-
good point. Like,
I
there's
would
a
say-
lot of stuff about wildlife policy that has fuck all to do with science. Like, minimum age, to be a licensed hunter
Oh, yeah.
is wildlife policy. There's no science doesn't have a role to play in setting that number. Just moving the minimum age from 16 to 14 is not going to increase the harvest of any game species to the point where it makes a fucking difference. like, so saying science is the tool for, well, okay, maybe in most circumstances even,
But I think also
but just to say wildlife policy overall, like, some of it's not science related.
It's also like using science. It's the, it's the same, roughly the same thing. That's like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna measure how much volume is in a forest. We're not just gonna go eyeball it and just say, yeah, there's plenty of trees left. No, we're gonna try to measure it the best we can. Obviously, applying to the fact that
ideally, but this is the pillar that gets broken most often. So if you have a commission structure, like then this is where you break that all the time, because you could like so in a commission structure, the biologists make recommendations and then the commissioners follow or don't follow those recommendations. So the biologist can say for the last 20 plus years, hey, you got to shoot more does, and the commissioners can be like, well, actually we don't. Actually, we need to harvest fewer deer. Because the commissioners who are elected by the public or selected by the public are not necessarily scientists, and they're just doing stuff because that's what feels good. So
commissioners are often just appointed by the governor.
Yeah.
So
it's not even selected by the public in any sense.
And I think public oversight is important, but also we often break this pillar in the name of public oversight, because this is also America, and you can't trust those dirty experts, those filthy people who spend their whole lives learning wildlife ecology and habitat management. You can't trust them. What's most important is Billy Joel out back, who's been hunting the same spot with his trusty old 30-06 for 30 years. He never moved his stand. He's killed deer every year except for the last 2 because the goddamn DNR introduced Ernabuck. That definitely wasn't.
I was gonna say this sounds like a personal history or something like that, Calvin.
Yeah, okay, that wasn't that. So the scientific pillar is very important, but also this is why this is a model, because we break this all the fucking time.
Yes, absolutely, we do. 7, democracy of hunting. So what that means, that's another one that's tied very closely to public trust doctrine and allocation of law. It's that everyone is a stakeholder, right? Because everyone can participate, everyone is a stakeholder. And it weirdly gets tied into like gun control laws. And especially as the way that Geist wrote it up originally.
Wait, hang on a second. You may have to explain that to me.
So, in North America, everyone has access to hunt. So you can just rock up in most states, as long as you're over 18. You can just rock up and buy a hunting tag. Buy a hunting license. Yep. You don't have to take a test. You don't have to do anything. You have access to hunt. And we also provide you lots of opportunities. So, like, you can have WMAs, so wildlife management units.
Do y'all not have hunter safety that you require?
Yeah, you can have hunter safety, but it's not required.
Oh, no, it's required.
I don't know, it's not required here, baby. You can just buy them guns. You can just, as long as you got money, you can buy a hunting license. So, but we focus on accessibility. There is no inherent, landowner right to hunt. So that's what makes the North American model different than European models. Is we're all about anyone could and should be able to hunt. You may have to take a hunter safety class, which is good and fine. You don't have to take a marksman class. You don't have to take all this kind of other stuff. You don't have to have in certain European countries you have to have hunting dogs to track wounded animals, and there's not a lot of things that get in the way of you being able to hunt.
Right. So that's where it gets back to gun control laws, though. Is in theory, okay, even if you restricted firearms, there's still archery, right? Well, okay, now I'm getting up there in the years, and my shoulder don't work so good anymore, and I can't pull a bow back, and so that's where it gets tied back into gun control.
Gotcha. Okay.
Laws is just creating that barrier to access. Also, there's this weird undercurrent of gun control laws disarming lower classes more than the upper classes, and again, this is kind of the weird stuff from Geist a little bit, where he kind of has this feeling that there's gonna be a violent revolution a little bit if you try to take away hunting and guns. It's very odd, dude.
Yeah, I think he might have been wrong at that point. I don't think that North Americans are going to
essentially though it was this theme of gun control makes hunting more the province of the wealthy,
Gotcha.
because it presents a higher barrier to hunting. You have to be. It's easier to be good with a rifle than it is to be good with a bow, I guess, is the argument there. And, like, I guess I can agree with that to an extent. Like, yeah, it is a barrier. It's a barrier. Now, is it a reasonable barrier? Maybe. I don't know that it's really that important of an argument to have, because, like, there's no reasonable amount of gun control that could ever happen in this country that would create a real barrier to, keeping hunting democratic, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no game species on the continent that requires a 10-round or more mag. Mm-hmm. There's no game species on the continent
I'm
that
not
requires
that great of a shot, so I would like multiple.
There's no game species that requires a semi-auto even to take down. If you can't take it down with a fucking bolt action, I don't know what you're doing. There's no game species on the continent that requires, a fucking 50 BMG to take down.
So the guy saying, I need this really big gun for the feral hogs.
The 40 to 60 feral hogs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I flipped through Iowa's just
That's
that
a
quick...
failure of public trust there.
Yeah.
But also,
yeah.
those are wildlife. Those are invasive.
Those are invasive.
Different. But in even in Scandinavian countries, like if you want to own a gun to target shoot to hunt, you have to be registered, you have to be licensed, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops. That doesn't occur in North America, and I agree. It's because guys had some things about the communists. So
yeah,
we're just gonna put that to the side. We're gonna say, yeah, he was also a product of the era. So,
and you know what? Like, honestly, on the I don't give a shit. The gun stuff, fuck. If you want to buy a bunch of AR-15s and a goddamn grenade launcher and fucking more ammo than a Fallout New Vegas player with the carry weight turned off. Pittman Robertson Act says, hey, I get a cut. So that keeps the fucking lights on. Go for it, man.
Yeah. Also, as much so this is the fun thing about Pitt Robinson money. Deer hunters, hunters are not particularly paying into that money because, I go through a box of ammo once every 3-4 years. I shoot
it is
3-4 times a year.
It's sport shooters and
target
preppers,
guys.
I guess. Yeah. Overwhelmingly that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more, I think, on the next episode. But that's the 7 tenets.
Woo!
That's it.
We did it.
And like I said, we could probably done an episode on each one of those separately, if we really wanted to dig into it, because there's a lot there.
Eventually we will.
We may need to. But yeah. So, anything we want to close with, anything we want to add or just touch on real quick. Like I said, this is going to be a 3-parter.
Yeah.
So is the next part going to be comparing the North American model to European models?
We can do that. I was mostly thinking about just talking about kind of weaknesses of the
that sounds great.
model, but we can compare and contrast
Yeah, I
too.
think if we can throw in a couple comparisons.
Yeah, I don't know that much about the European model, so I'd have to dig into that a little bit.
I can cover some of that. Yeah,
if you got that.
So I think then we're gonna cut all this. So I think we do the 3-parter on the North American model, and then I think we get Joe on to talk about feral horse management.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Because I think that
yeah.
I think that he'll do it, and I also think we're going to talk about shooting feral horses.
Wait, can we get AJ from Worst of All Possible Worlds too?
So now that's the question. Do we go for AJ or do we go for Joe? Because Joe
hates
both.
Horses.
Oh, that's gonna be
Both.
too busy.
Both.
Oh God.
I don't know if we have the riff skills for that. I don't know.
Not yet.
We don't need to. We just let them go.
Okay. All right. We could try.
Worst they say is no.
Yeah. All right. So we could shoot for it. So I think that's where we go next because when we start to launch, we will need some guests to help pull audience. So.
Yep.
Yes.
But Joe hates feral horses, so there's my in there.
Joe
he hates horses.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and the feral horse episode is just shoot them goddamn horses.
Yep. Just talk.
It's
real
also, simple, boy.
I feel like
just
there's also a
them.
little bit of a military history thing, or at least a history thing, of the introduction of horses and Native Americans doing stuff, and try to do a little bit of a crossover work on it.
Yeah, although I like the AJ. That's not a bad thought there.
That's just a fun one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad thought. All right, so we'll see who we get. We'll see who we can pull between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So let's.
I guess we need to do a closing riff
and cut
or
back.
Yeah, let's.
All right, and so that was the 7 tenets of the North American model. It was originally going to be a two-parter, but we still have more to say, so this is going to be a 3-part episode. Anything y'all want to add before we close it out?
I would just like to add that we have talked more about the North American model of wildlife management than we did about what is a forest.
So I think part of that is just, at least for me, it's like this is all brand new information to me. Like I feel like, AJ, you've at least got an exposure to foresters enough where you're like, yeah, I can pull a forest out of my ass. Like I don't know what wild that any of this was. So like you're teaching me from the bottom.
That's kind of wild to me, but I mean, I guess it is the duel for me. But like, I just assumed that most people had that solid policy buildup. You might not have in forestry school been exposed to all 7 pillars, but at least talked about the North American model of wildlife management a little bit.
And it may also be the fact that my brain is mush at this point,
Yeah,
and undergrad was.
I would
ago.
bet that a lot of forestry schools are not touching on the North American model at all.
Boo! It's easily
may
one
have
of the
referenced it, but that's about it.
It's easily one of the best accomplishments that we have achieved in natural resources.
Oh
in
yeah,
North America.
Definitely. Having learned all of this, it's like, oh shit, this is kind of foundational, and especially the democratic access, such as it is, to wildlife that's really freaking cool. Because if everyone else is if the duck is on this guy's property, it's not your duck, and here it's all of our ducks. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and in fairness, though, I'll say, probably there's a lot of wildlife biologists in the country that couldn't tell you the 7 tenets of the North American model or anything like that. Because, honestly, it's kind of a 10,000-foot view kind of model, right? It's important we all do it, but we don't need to know what it all is in order to actually do our jobs. Right, I'm not really doing my job any differently whether I know all 7 of those or not, because it's just kind of built in. It's just not something we think about, and so it's not something that gets thought about on a regular basis.
Well, and that's why I think it's really cool that he went through and wrote this all down, because this is not something you think about, you write out in your day to day, between getting grants, writing papers, all this stuff, doing this deep philosophy on the nature of wildlife management, that's being able to do it is really cool. Being able to take that step back is awesome. Just big shouts out. I know that everyone has their critiques of models and philosophy and etc. But this just approach to management is so foundational in management, because it's what drives decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think that about wraps it up. Otherwise, we'll go for another 20 minutes and we'll never.
Someone has to build a crib, so yeah.
All right, and with that, we will see you all next week
for the conclusion of wildlife episodes.
Unless it goes to 4 parts.
Oh god, it just turns into a wildlife podcast.
Yeah. So once again, the 7 pillars are clean, thrifty, courteous, kind, cheerful,
brave, clean, Hajj.
Okay.
You gotta do your Hajj to West Virginia. Listener, if you don't know what the West Virginia, that's where the National Jamboree for the Scouts of North America is now held. Is held in West Virginia.
Yeah.
So if you were to Hajj for the American Scouts, it would be in West.
A Hajj for. If you don't know what Hajj is, look it up.
Yeah, learn about other cultures for once. Gosh,
yeah.
We don't have to explain everything to you.
Yeah, we
Just
can't keep going on tangents. We're not going to go on a tangent to explain the pillars of Islam to everyone.
Look, I know we've been off track.
And how it pertains to the principles of wildlife management.
Hey, the fact that we did it is pretty impressive.
Solid riff. I've been laughing this whole time anytime that's come up.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's great. Okay, bye everybody.
All right.
Bye everyone.